In early May of 2011, the Sofitel Legend Metropole Hanoi unveiled a plaque commemorating Australia's first embassy in Vietnam. From 1973 until 1976, the embassy operated out of 5 rooms in the Metropole's old wing. Coincidentally, the British novelist Graham Greene stayed in these same rooms when he visited Hanoi in the early 1950s. In the video clip that follows, the hotel's general manager, Speth, talks to us at Mandarin Media about the Australian Embassy and the legacy of Graham Greene at the Metropole. So we're sitting here in the Graham Greene suite of the Sofitel Legend Metropole Hanoi, and many know Graham Greene as the author of The Quiet American, but why has this suite been named for him?
Well, Graham Greene obviously is well known for his travels throughout Indochina in the 50s, where he extensively covered the region. And we were a very big part of that. Throughout this entire time, in the early 50s, Graham Greene came frequently to the Metropole and spent significant time here. And this was obviously one of his favorite rooms, at the time the largest room in the hotel. And he spent time in this room. And at some point, after a lot of research, we decided to honor Graham Greene by naming the suite after him.
Right. And for people who can't see, we have 2 rooms here. This is the sitting quarters, and there's a bedroom as well.
Bedroom, that's correct, yes. Yeah. It's a beautiful suite. It's right at the corner of the hotel, overlooking Concord Park. So I think it maybe gave him a lot of inspiration. And that's why he preferred this room, and we honored him.
Sure.
By naming this
Now,
room.
how attractive is that for the people that you talk to at the hotel, the guests who come here? They know this story? It's part of the romance of the hotel, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Graham Greene, it's definitely one of the attractions here in the hotel. It's the Charlie Chaplin suite, Somerset Maugham suite, and of course the Graham Greene suite. And Graham Greene, being one of these very famous writers, just brings a lot of allure to the place. I'm constantly being asked about him, about what he did here, what he did in Vietnam, why the Metropole, and so on. So yeah, definitely, there's a lot of attraction about Graham Greene, his work, and his time spent here in Indochina, in particular in Vietnam.
Is it Graham Greene more than some of the other famous people who've stayed here? Noel Coward was here, Somerset Maugham.
Somerset Maugham, Charlie Chaplin, of course, on his honeymoon.
Right.
That's very difficult for me to answer. I think it's a dead even race between Charlie Chaplin and Graham Greene. Obviously, the European travelers, the people of more British descent, they are asking more about Graham Greene, because the novel The Quiet American is so famous. And of course, please don't forget there was also a movie made, which was quite successful, with Michael Caine and Catherine Deneuve, and that was also partially filmed, of course, in this hotel. So that gives the whole thing a little bit more emphasis, and it's a big topic. I think every week, at least once or twice, I end up speaking about it.
Yeah. And Catherine Deneuve too. I'm sure that's a big attraction for some people, especially from France. She was here in the hotel.
That's correct. Yeah, it's part of filming the movie several years back. So yes.
Sure. Now, that heritage of the Metropole is rather well known. The writers, some of the famous celebrities, Joan Baez, of course, Jane Fonda from the past. But less well known, perhaps, is Australia's association with this very space. Tell us about that.
That's correct. Well, at the tail end of the war, in the early 70s, when things were changing in favor of Vietnam, the war was at a very difficult stage. It looked as if America was really losing the battle. Of course, diplomatic relationships were very, very complicated. And that's when a lot of the foreign communities came back into Vietnam and started to build and work on their diplomatic relationships. At that time in Hanoi, there was really no other place but the Metropole. And Australia was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relationships again with Vietnam at that time, and in 1973 they actually moved into the Metropole and established their very first embassy in Vietnam right here in this space, from room 252, which is right next to us, to room 229, right next to the Graham Greene suite. So those 5 rooms, including this one, house the Australian embassy from 1973 to 1976. So this is maybe less known, but definitely a very significant fact and extremely important to the Australian community and their wonderful efforts projects in this country.
Sure. Now, there was recently a dedication ceremony. You have formalized your recognition of Australia's role here in the hotel, and that was just a couple of weeks ago?
That's correct, yeah. It was about 3 weeks ago. We had the Governor-General of Australia with us. Her Excellency represents the Commonwealth in Australia, therefore is a representative of the Queen, or Buckingham Palace. And this was it's a state visit, it's a head of state visit for us. And about 6 months ago or so, the Australian ambassador came to me and he said he did some research. Obviously, he needs to know his history about the diplomatic relationships of Australia with Vietnam. And he found out that the Metropole was the very first embassy and that they were in these rooms here on the second floor in the Metropole. And he asked me whether we could put up a small plaque on the outside of this suite, the Graham Greene suite, to honor the fact that the embassy was located here for those 3 years. Very difficult years, very challenging years for those people who established and were basically pioneered the diplomatic relationships here. So I absolutely agreed to that. I thought it was a wonderful idea. And it's another very interesting part of our history, how closely we've always worked with the diplomatic communities, the foreign entities here in Vietnam. So 2 weeks ago, when the Governor-General, Her Excellency, was in the hotel, we unveiled the plaque, and her name is actually on it, that she unveiled it. And it was a wonderful little moment, really honoring those people back in those days. And it was most difficult to come and start the conversation and the dialogue between two countries.
Right. And the Governor-General, when she was here, she stayed in the suite.
Oh, yes. And it was a big success. I didn't expect it. She was only here for 2 days. Of course, we gave her the suite because of the historic value. And we later found out that she's a huge Graham Greene fan. So she was talking about it extensively during her speech when we unveiled the plaque, that she was honored to stay in this suite and that she really loved the suite and the fact that Graham Greene spent so much time in here. So it was a wonderful moment for us.
Right, right. Now, Australia, I know the hotel is now doing some research into other embassies that had located at the Metropole. For sure you know that the Italian embassy was here as well.
That is correct. The Italian embassy was also here.
Yeah.
A little bit later, I believe it was they came in at 1976 to also 3-4 years. We have a plaque outside of that room, and there have been several others. So this is a very interesting development for me because, again, thinking back and having worked around the world, there aren't many dead hotels that can put this into their history books, so to say, that they've had such close relationships and embassies within their premises for such an extended period of time. So we know for sure about Italy and of course now Australia, and we're also aware that some of the Scandinavian countries had their embassy in this hotel. So we're right now doing a little bit more research on this because I think it's a fact that's very important. It's something that's not so much talked about, but really plays a significant role in the development of this country and where Vietnam is today.
Sure.
Because I believe without proper international relationships, you cannot move forward, as we all know.
Right.
And the Metropole played a very significant role in that. So we will continue our research, and we are aware there have been 4 or 5 different embassies that have been in this hotel and used the hotel as an embassy. In the late 70s, mid-70s, and all the way until the mid-80s.
Right.
So I will have to give you a little more updates on this
Sure.
as we gather more intelligence.
Right, and these days the hotel still has a relationship with the diplomatic community, but it's with the ambassadors who come and stay here.
That is correct. I mean, the one thing that makes the Metropole so special is that it still plays very much the social center of the foreign community, whether it's diplomatic or just people or expats that live and work here, has played so in the past. It was always the center point, it was always the social gathering point, and up to today it has remained in that role. So yes, every day I greet ambassadors from all the different nations, whether it's African nations, European nations, American nations, countries. Every day we'll have them in our hotel as guests in the restaurants, sometimes staying even on a weekend with their wives. So it's something that is nice to see.
That connection endures.
That connection is nice, yes.
Well, thank you very much, Kai.
My pleasure. Thank you.